The night swallowed the highway in thick layers of fog and dust, the kind of darkness that made headlights feel weak and secrets feel heavy. Trucks roared past like beasts with glowing eyes, their horns screaming into the emptiness, while the old warehouse road remained mostly forgotten, except by those who wanted to stay unseen. Inside a rusted black van bouncing violently over potholes, a young girl named Aisha sat hunched between two men who smelled of sweat, cigarettes, and danger. Her wrists were tied with rough rope cutting into her skin, and a strip of tape pressed cruelly across her mouth. She had stopped crying hours ago. Tears had become useless. Fear had settled into her bones like ice. Every bump sent pain through her body. But worse than the pain was the silence, broken only by the driver's low curses and the laughter of the man beside her, laughing at messages on his phone as if this were just another night out. Aisha's mind raced back to the moment her life shattered. Walking home from her tuition class, the streetlights flickering, the sudden grip on her arm, the van door slamming shut. In minutes, her world had disappeared. Now somewhere between nowhere and worse, she knew one thing with terrifying clarity. If she didn't do something soon, she might never be seen again. The van slowed as it approached a roadside repair stop, a lonely stretch where truck drivers and bikers sometimes paused to rest. The kidnappers argued in low voices, deciding whether to stop for fuel or push ahead. This pause, this tiny crack in their plan, was everything. Aisha's heart began to pound so loudly she feared they would hear it. She forced herself to breathe slowly, to think. Her eyes scanned the outside through the narrow gap near the door. And then she saw them, bikers, a group of 5 or 6. Motorcycles stood near the repair shop, their chrome reflecting the harsh yellow lights. The riders were big, leather-clad silhouettes, laughing, drinking tea, helmets resting on their bikes. Ordinary people would see danger in them. Aisha saw hope. She remembered something her father once told her while watching a movie. Sometimes the strongest help doesn't look gentle. Sometimes it roars. Her fingers trembled as she rubbed her tied hands against the metal edge of the seat, scraping her skin until she felt something loosen. The tape still sealed her mouth. But her hands could move just a little. The van rolled closer, slowing almost to a stop. One of the bikers glanced toward the road, his eyes sharp even in the dim light. Aisha knew this might be her only chance. With all the strength she had left, she leaned toward the door and let her hands slip through the small opening, just enough to be seen. She couldn't scream. She couldn't wave wildly. So she did the only thing she could. She tapped twice on the metal. Then once more, a desperate, coded rhythm she had learned as a child when playing rescue games with her cousins. Then she twisted her wrists so the rope was clearly visible. It lasted less than 2 seconds. The driver cursed and slammed the door shut, accelerating away. "Stupid kid," one of the men muttered, checking the mirror. No one saw anything, but someone had. One biker, the tallest, with a scar cutting through his eyebrow, had gone quiet. His name was Rashid, and he had lived long enough to recognize fear when he saw it. He had seen the hands, the rope, the signal. He stood up slowly, eyes locked on the disappearing van. "Did you see that?" he asked. Another biker, Imran, followed his gaze. "See what?" Rashid didn't answer immediately. He was already putting on his helmet. "That wasn't nothing," he said firmly. "That was a girl asking for help." The others exchanged glances. There was no dramatic discussion, no long debate about risks or consequences. Rashid kicked his bike to life, the engine growling like an awakened animal. "If we're wrong," he said, voice steady, "we lose a few minutes. If we're right—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. One by one, the other bikers started their engines. Teacups were left untouched. Helmets snapped on. In seconds, the group formed a tight line on the road, headlights slicing through the fog. They didn't think twice. Ahead, inside the van, Aisha felt her hope fading again as the road stretched endlessly. Her wrists burned, her throat ached beneath the tape, and fear whispered cruel lies. "They didn't see you. No one is coming." She fought those thoughts, clinging to the memory of that biker's eyes, sharp, alert, human. The van took a turn toward an even darker road, leading away from the highway. The kidnappers relaxed, laughing again, already talking about money and plans. None of them noticed the faint thunder growing behind them. None of them checked the mirror closely enough to see the cluster of headlights. Gaining ground, Rashid led the pack with calm precision, signaling turns with quick hand movements. keeping distance but never losing sight of the van. Years of riding together had made them silent communicators. This wasn't about heroism or playing cops. This was instinct, brotherhood. The unspoken rule that some lines, once crossed, demanded action. As the bikes closed in, Imran pulled up beside Rashid. "Police?" He shouted over the engines. Rashid shook his head. "Not yet. If they panic, they could hurt her." The weight of responsibility pressed heavy on all of them. One wrong move could cost a life. The van swerved, hitting a rough patch, and Aisha was thrown against the wall. She cried out behind the tape, pain exploding in her side. At that exact moment, the bikers accelerated. The chase had begun. Headlights flooded the van's rear windows. The driver stiffened. "What the hell?" He snapped, gripping the wheel tighter. Panic crept into his voice. "We're being followed." The man in the back lunged toward Aisha, anger flashing in his eyes. "What did you do?" He hissed, raising his hand. Fear surged, but before he could strike, a loud horn blasted from behind, followed by the roar of engines surrounding them like wolves closing in. Aisha squeezed her eyes shut, her heart racing, torn between terror and a fragile, glowing hope. She didn't know who those bikers were. She didn't know if they would succeed. But for the first time since the van door had slammed shut, she felt something she thought she had lost forever, the feeling that she was not alone. And as the van sped into the darkness with motorcycles closing in from all sides, fate shifted direction on that lonely road. If this story has already pulled you into the chase, remember, real heroes don't always wear uniforms, and real stories deserve to be heard. Stay with us because Chapter 2 will change everything. And if you believe in stories of courage, humanity, and unexpected heroes, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a moment when hope fights back.